Hey, what's up, guys? Today I'm joined by Cameron of Merch Jar, and I invited him on the channel to do an interview because he posted some crazy numbers in my Amazon Merch Facebook group, and I want to ask you a couple questions about how you got to those numbers. So, what's up, Cameron?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Hey, man, happy you're here. So, let's not bury the lead. I'm looking over here at this screenshot, and it says 436 sales in a single day, and this was less than a week ago. So how the heck did you make so many sales in one day on Merch by Amazon?
Well, it wasn't an overnight success, that's for sure. I mean, what you're seeing there is the culmination of 3 years of work. I'm going in my 4th year of Merch by Amazon now. Most of that's from 2 best-selling products. June's one of my biggest months of the year. It was actually my biggest month last year to even beat out December by a pretty healthy margin. So trying to repeat that this year and not quite hitting some of the numbers that I did last year, but we'll kind of see how it is. But yeah, it's a long-term journey building, especially those 2 products, really just over time. Where they're starting out, it's like, yeah, they're selling like handful a month. Now they're doing, 1 or 2 a day. And then they get to that point as they build up reviews, they move up the rankings, index on more search terms. So that's really what you're seeing there. And ads, like a lot of advertising dollars to get to that point. They're into real high competition niches that it's really to see those kind of sales. It's honestly almost a requirement. Otherwise, you're just going to get drowned in the competition and with other advertisers.
That's interesting to note. So you're saying that you ran some ads to some of these listings. So what's your opinion on like, let's say that you reached the organic rank 1 spot without advertising, just in theory. Do you think you can hold that spot without running ads? Like, how realistic do you think that is today in the current Amazon ecosystem?
It's possible. I think it depends a little bit on the competitions and how many reviews you have. Like if you're the #1 spot and you have like 5 reviews, yeah, I mean, maybe if it's like your design's just blowing everybody else's out of the water with sales, but reviews are kind of like what keeps you up there, especially if you're against a bunch of shirts that don't have any reviews, or if you have 500 5-star reviews. That's a huge difference between someone that has 5. Like that could be a lot harder to overtake from the competition because reviews are everything. For a competitor to take that #1 spot from you, they're probably going to need maybe not as many reviews as you, but a lot more than just a handful of them. So it really depends on the product. Like it's possible. I wouldn't do that personally, especially if I already have the #1 spot. What you don't have is the #1 sponsored spot above you, even if you're not running ads. So someone could, if you're not and someone else is running ads, they could very easily overtake you because they would appear on the page ahead of you. And I think most of us have been kind of doing this for a while, know this, but for anyone else that doesn't, most of the clicks happen to the first 3 or 4 products that are listed on Amazon, whether they're sponsored or not. I don't think most customers even realize they're clicking on an advertisement and see that little sponsored text on it that's real strategically small. Probably 80 and 90% of clicks happen on those first few listings. So if you're below, you have someone 4 people advertising different products, all 4 of those slots ahead of you, you could easily lose your rank, even if you do have reviews. It's just a lot of factors. It depends. My strategy would be more of like protecting that position for sure.
I agree. Because I've got some FBA products that I was fortunate, like I was able to scale up and get to the top of their primary keywords quick-ish. I mean, FBA, I'd say, no, yeah, it depends. Same as merch, just depends on like your competition. And it's kind of like you get to that point where you're like, all right, now I got to reel in the ad spend, probably focus it in on like some high value keywords that I don't want to like make cheap on my competition. Right. I don't want them to get away with getting cheap bids in because I turned my ads off. So I was going to ask, like, what is your, and if anybody's asking or is listening and wondering, like, I'm looking 436 sales, you generated $2,206 in royalties that day. Is that your best day?
Of this year so far. Not my best day. Last June, I hit a 4,000 day.
Damn, 4,000. I'm like, I got a $4,000 month. You're like, oh, $4,000 day.
Yeah, and there's ad spend obviously on that too, especially quite a bit right now to hold the ranking. And I'm kind of at the point now where I'm like kind of protecting my ranking. I have one that peaked. I think it peaked on that screenshot that you're talking about, it's starting to kind of move down the rankings a little bit. It's just other niches kind of take over. So it's more about, I spent a lot kind of moving up to that or hitting that peak. And now it's more about optimizing the spend and just maintaining as many sales as I can without, spending half of it on advertising. But it's when you go from with that, it's kind of unique. There's so many things we could talk about with like advertising, because it's just, it depends. You're going to hear me say that like a million times maybe.
Right.
But like this, my ad spend more than tripled overnight, essentially. Like when a niche pops off, or, you hit these trends or whatever, especially seasonal ones that are pretty predictable that happen year over year. At that point, it's just, managing your spend, making sure you're spending enough, but not, your CPC is not too high. So it's a bit of a challenge there. It really is just a balance of like, okay, I want to spend enough that I'm ranking or, continuing to rank or holding my rank versus your main competitors without blowing out the budget. Because you can easily spend a ton. Like June's a pretty big month for a lot of niches. Traffic skyrockets across a ton of categories, which also brings a lot more advertisers to the game, which increases bids. So you could, have the same bid that you had before, and maybe you weren't hitting your budget. Say you had a $50 a day budget on some campaign, just for example, and you were only hitting $25 or $10 or whatever it was with your bid. Now all this traffic comes in. There's a lot more inventory, ad inventory for Amazon, because ad inventory is essentially like traffic. Every time someone pulls up a search result, Amazon's going to show ads. So that's additional inventory, which can help bids a bit, but not always if there's more competition. So just from that increased traffic, you can blow your budgets out just from that. And maybe the conversion rate's not as high. People are doing a little more window shopping or whatever it is. So times like that, when things are really volatile, the tripling overnight, and it kind of, it turned to, a third of the advertising overnight again, like after the peak. So just kind of, I don't know. I'm still kind of figuring that out too. I don't know that I have a great answer with those kind of situations. It's much easier when you have a product that just like is really steady throughout the year, that doesn't have like those huge peaks to optimize those campaigns.
So do you, I'm assuming you check daily. Do you let your budget kind of scale with the demand? Like, do you set a low budget that gets spent and then, the next person behind you ends up, or do you?
No, yeah, I scale my budget based on the performance for sure. So if it's kind of within my target metrics that, ACoS or kind of hitting my campaign goals for that particular campaign, which is typically done through ACoS, like what I set what my target ACoS is. And that's going to vary across campaigns as well. So like for my, on average, I target about 26% target ACoS, break even across most merch products. But then I'll have campaigns that I'll have a higher target ACoS, like with search terms that are a priority for me. So like ones that are just super important for my products, I'll have a higher target ACoS. So as long as kind of it's within my target, metrics, I'll increase budget. I'll scale that as high as it needs to go.
So when you say target ACoS, like, are you referring to MerchJar?
Well, just it's MerchJar does use target ACoS for different bid calculations and automations. But target ACoS is kind of just like a best practice across Amazon advertising. There's a lot of different software, and just, it's kind of, it's a benchmark, really. So you have your ACoS, like what's a good ACoS? Like, I don't know, what's your target ACoS? Like if it's below it or, around what your target is, that's a good ACoS. If it's not as good. But target ACoS is, like, to boil that down, it's really just like what your goal for the campaign is and how aggressive you're going to be. So if your target ACoS is break even of 25%, that's on the, slightly more aggressive side, but maybe you want a 40% ACoS if you're launching a new product, for example, and you want to get those first sales, get those reviews going. And maybe you want a lower target ACoS, like a 15%, super profitable. When you have a more mature product, you have thousands of reviews, a lot of organic sales. You're kind of in that product maturity stage where you're trying to extract more profit out of it rather than rank it.
Got you. And when you say target ACoS, like, are you doing like manual adjustments to try to get there?
Yeah, definitely. So most at this point, I'm not doing a ton of manual adjustments. Merchstar kind of handles that. It automates all my thousands of hundreds of campaigns or whatever. But yeah, before that, I was using Merchstar before it was at a point that I could. Yeah, I was doing manual adjustments. You can do them right through Ad Console. If you don't have too many campaigns, you just go in, manually adjust it. You can kind of like know what your target ACoS is. Like, oh, that's higher. Let's lower it a little bit. If it's below, let's raise it a little bit. And it really is like that simple. Just doing that. If you just did that once a week, which enough people don't do. Ads are not set it and forget whatsoever. It changes. Your competition changes. Your biz changes. All sorts of variables in that. So you do have to actively manage them. I forgot where I was going. What was the question?
Oh, just like how you're like when you say like set the target ACoS, just like what how do you actually get there? Because like I've used software in the past that hooked in. We were talking about it before we started recording. And like I could set a target ACoS there, and then the software would actually go and adjust my bids for me. Behind the scenes, and that was nice. But I'm not using that for not using it in general anymore today. So it's like for me, I'd have to go manually do it. Yeah.
So Merchstar works similarly. Like we calculate what your target cost per click should be based on what your target ACoS is, and then we adjust your bid accordingly for that. You can do similar. Without even having to do some of those calculations of what like your target CPC is or whatever, just by using like your bulk spreadsheets. There's the bulk reports in Amazon ads if you want to do them all at one time. That works. I mean, if you're comfortable with Excel, you're probably not going to have too many difficulties with it, but it really comes down to is like, yeah, you have your target ACoS. I think that's one of the most important things you do before you even run ads. You should determine what your target ACoS is by determining what your break-even cost of your product is. And generally that's like a good starting point. It's just your break-even point, because probably a new product, you want to start getting some sales. Don't worry about profit so much now. You'll get that just from getting more organic sales. And just if your ACoS is above your target ACoS, lower it. And if it's below it, raise the bid. And do it incrementally, not like
right.
I wouldn't. If you're doing it manually, I'd say once a week, every 5 to 7 days would be adequate for most products. And for how much data most people are kind of getting in, because it's really more about like how much data you're collecting. You could optimize it faster. If you're getting 100 orders a day, you could optimize your bids more often than that. You probably want to, but if you're only spending, $20 to $50 a day, once a week's probably enough. But yeah, it's really that simple. If it's a higher, lower the bids. I wouldn't change them more than maybe 20, 25% at most. So that you're changing incrementally. Because lowering bids doesn't necessarily lower your ACoS either, depending just the way the auctions work.
Right.
If you think about like automatic targeting campaigns, which is probably what most people are using, and what I recommend to start out with, don't even start with manual unless you've really done your research, unless you're experienced with PPC. Start with the automatic campaigns. They're really good. But you have your automatic targeting campaigns are actually broken up into 4 different targeting groups: close match, substitutes, complements. What I miss? Close, loose, complements, substitutes. Complements and substitutes. I don't know. There's 4.
It's close, loose, substitutes, and complements.
Yeah, we got that. We got there. So there's 4 different targeting groups, which are kind of like what keywords or products Amazon's going to target on your behalf, which all of them tend to be pretty broad. So even your close match targeting group, you're probably being seen on hundreds or even thousands of different search terms for your product. Yeah, most people aren't collecting enough data on that. Like you got a campaign where you'll spend like $5 and get 25 clicks, and it looks like it's doing awful, right? It was like, oh, I spent more than what I would have got on this standard t-shirt sale. But when you think of it in terms of like those different targeting groups, like how those are broken down, you might have those 25 clicks might be on 25 different search terms. And now you're turning off a campaign because like each of those one search terms, like you didn't give them enough data or collect enough data to be able to make like an actionable decision on that. You're basically just guessing at this point. It's like, oh, this isn't going to work. When you may have just turned off your what potentially a very profitable campaign had you given it more time, had you given it more data to collect and see kind of how things are performing.
Yeah, and as far as like the big successful screenshot that you posted from 400 plus sales in a day, how wide of a net do you cast on like that, a listing like that is achieving basically the, top tier of success that's possible in a big niche that has a lot of, because it's what you can get to the top of a small niche and not get nearly as many sales. And so like, how wide of a net are you casting on your keyword targeting? Are you honing in on, like, if it was a Father's Day shirt, would you hone in on funny Father's Day shirt, or are you also going for like a bunch of relevant, like, long tail keywords?
So pretty much all my search terms start from an automatic campaign. I'm using automatic campaigns to harvest keywords because I don't like to guess. I like to have actual hard data of what's working and what's not. And auto campaigns do a fantastic job of casting that wide net. So part of that is, so Amazon advertising uses a similar algorithm to kind of like the indexing algorithm, and what search terms your product should just appear for in general. And over time, generally, you index for more search terms. I mean, the two products that I'm selling, like within that sales figure, I mean, they're both indexing for 3,000 plus different search terms. When you first post a product, you might only be listing on a few dozen or a couple hundred.
Right. And expand real quick on when you say 3,000, because somebody just right now is like, that's not possible. Like, maybe just explain like long tail real quick at a high level.
Well, so I think one example is if you put 7 different keywords in your title, I think you can put 7 different words in your title pretty easily. Those 7 different words can end up creating something like 7.7 thousand different combinations of those words. And that's really what it comes out. If you have, like, one search term could be cat tree for kittens, another one would be kitten cat tree, for example. Those are 2 different search terms. They have 2 different volumes of traffic that come in. And you can index for one or both of those. So there's just a lot of different combinations of keywords and the way people type in search terms. I don't know about on Amazon. There's a stat I read a while ago for like Google searches that like something like 10 to 20% of of all searches are brand new searches that have never been seen before. And that same thing's happening on Amazon too, right? Like, that's no different. Like, and you can see this if you are running advertising, you can actually see what people are typing into the search term box and what people in which of those search terms your ads are appearing for, what they're clicking on, how they're selling. And that's data you're just not seeing. If you're not running ads, you don't have access to that data. It's very much pay to play for that.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of the advertising. And Amazon kind of like pigeonholes you into paying to play if you want to learn from their, the limited data they'll give you when you do advertise. Otherwise, you just kind of, even with Seller Central, it's like you don't have access to that much. They're very protective over a lot of the important data.
Yeah, exactly. And even with like Seller Central, you need to be brand registered to get like their brand analytics data, which they'll actually just tell you what their top million or so search terms are, what the ranking is of them, and so forth. But you have to pay for that. And, for one, just through a Seller Central account, plus you need to be brand registered. So having a trademark kind of thing too. So Amazon's, I mean, for the most part, has always been pay to play too, or especially in maybe not always, but for a while now, especially for other platforms. And merch, if it's not already, it's going in that direction. Part of that's just the big change that recently happened with the tiering system, where basically every account 64x the number of listings that are possible. And I think that's Amazon very loudly saying, like, I mean, they want as many products as possible on the platform. They don't care about competition. If anything, they want more competition because they directly benefit from that. For one, it drives down prices on product goods, which is something Amazon's always wanted to do because it brings in customers and so forth. Yep. And it drives up the need for advertising because you're competing against thousands and thousands of products. How are you going to get seen if you're just putting a product out there? Your impression share of a search term, I don't care how good you write your title, you put exactly what that search term you're targeting is, doesn't mean you're going to get much of an impression share. And it drives up bid costs. So they're making more money the more competition there is. So it makes sense that Amazon's definitely driving that direction. And like, to your point with like FBA, FBM, those kind of marketplaces, it used to be when you launched a product, you would be doing like giveaways, search, find, buy, which I'm sure some people do. And now it's like when you launch a product, you just run ads. I have a good friend that's hugely successful with his FBA business, and he loves the transition where it used to be such a pain in the ass to do all these like giveaways to rank your product. And now it's just like, I just run some ads and we're launching our product. It's great.
Yep. Yeah. It's crazy how
Amazon makes money off
changes. Yeah. Like it's as passive as the stuff can be. Like it definitely, if you're willing to like kind of stay keen to what's going on, any changes and whatnot, like it definitely can fade. Like it allows, I always want like some sort of an edge to feel like I have some sort of an edge that I can exploit to give myself a leg up if I'm going to spend my time doing anything really. So yeah, it is interesting how like the current state of things and how it wasn't necessarily this when I started Amazon FBA and Amazon merch in early 2017. So
yeah. And that's like, speaking of edges, like that's very much my edge in the merch game, especially when there's so many people, for one, that don't have access to it. I'm sure I'll get some shade, like talking about how important ads are and everybody should run ads. And it's like, most people don't have them. It's like, I mean, I'm going to get some shade, right? Like it's, I understand that Amazon doesn't give a shit. Like it's business. You'll probably get it eventually. I'm actually a little surprised it hasn't rolled out by now to everybody because they make money. I don't quite know kind of where that's at with the merch team, but I expect like fully that everybody will get ads at some point. And if you don't have them, I don't know, Startup Seller Central, you get ads right away, or KDP, you can get ads right away. But they are becoming more and more a necessity if you want to compete. I don't care what niche it's in. Especially like, yeah, this big merch change. Like this is, I don't know that I've seen enough people even talking about how huge this merch change is going to be. And it hasn't really like fully taken effect yet because of the upload limits. Like I'm tier 120,000. I'm stuck at 2,400 products a day. I had 6,000 a few weeks ago that I could upload in a day. I couldn't upload any because I was maxed out. But once the floodgates open on this, like, I mean, bigger sellers are going to be in every niche. Like, why wouldn't you be? And then if you're running ads, you're skipping to the front of the line. You're getting top search placements. I mean, ideally, obviously, but on lower niches, you got lower bids, so forth. But yeah, it's the way
opportunity knocks, man. People don't want to hear that the big fish can necessarily.
They want it to be a fair playing field. I hear a lot. I wish this was a fair playing field. It's like it's not. Business isn't in general. This is. I mean, since all of history, it's never been a fair playing field. You just have to do what you can to be able to compete. If you have access to advertising and you're not running ads, you are leaving a ton of opportunity and money on the table. That is for sure.
Yeah, dude, I'm looking right now at my phone and it's like, speaking of like, yeah, it may not be level, but for instance, my girlfriend had her merch account. She wasn't using it. Long story short, we started taking it seriously a couple months ago. And like, she just sent me a picture. She just teared up finally, you know, cause she had like hundreds more sales than she needed to get out of tier 100. And she should probably be in like tier 2000 now, or at least 1000. So she finally just got tiered up, and it's like, hey, incremental steps, right? Do what you can do at the time. And then as you get pushed forward, higher tiers, maybe get access to ads, just have a plan. So I think this was a great interview and definitely got like, you shared some very valuable nuggets. We could talk for probably a lot longer. We spent 30 minutes talking before this. So, but let's cap it here. Hopefully everybody watching, like you guys gained some insights into what's possible with ads, and you got to see a firsthand success story of like high-end success fueled and made possible by ads. So cameraman, thanks for being here. Anything else you want to like leave us with? Plug your YouTube, Facebook, anything?
I mean, if you're interested in learning Amazon ads, where you've been doing it for a while, you've never done it, even if you don't have access to it yet, it's a good idea to at least familiarize yourself with kind of the strategy. Because if you're brand new to pay-per-click, PPC in general, there's a lot to learn. If you have experience from like Facebook ads or Google ads, there is a lot of overlap there that you can bring over into Amazon ads. But in either case, join the Amazon Amazon Advertising University Facebook group. It's put on by
it'll be in the description.
Yeah, it'll be in the description. So if I'm saying the title wrong, but yeah, join that. There's a lot of great content, a lot of big advertisers. I create content for the group as well. But we've put a lot of information there to get you started. Quick start guides, that sort of thing. So yeah, if you haven't done ads, just start running them and testing them. Even just simple auto ad with all your ASINs or products in one campaign, low bids. You might be surprised like how cheap of orders you can get from that.
Yeah, that's great advice. Like the low bid auto campaigns, easy to run. You can use the product or Chrome extension, export your ASINs, and get those going. And then, like you said, we're probably offline talking about how like the longer they run, the more data it collects. So the earlier you start, guys, the better. And like if you don't have access to ads yet, just pray, I guess, right? Like hopefully they'll roll that out. Like they just finished, I think, rolling out the big change to upload designs instead of products. So maybe ads are next for everybody.
Yeah, it's definitely coming. I mean, just from the change they made from having like the advertise in the dashboard. I mean, it's coming for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like everything merch, it's kind of always a slow rollout. So
cool. All right, guys, check out the Amazon. What is it again? Sorry, the Facebook group. I got it open here.
Amazon Ads University. Yeah.
Yep. That'll be the first link in the description. And Cameron, thank you for being here, man. That thread that you posted in the Facebook group, in my Facebook group, which is just general Amazon merch, was awesome. You also typed out like a lot of like basically long form content to help inspire and inform people of like how it's done. So I appreciate that. And anybody that wants to join both of our Facebook groups, feel free. Joining a community for like-minded people trying to achieve the same goal is definitely like a great strategy. And it's a great way of like plugging in, learning from people in the case of like advertising that spend more money than you. And, you know, so it's, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're all learning. I mean, I don't know that I would quite consider myself an expert. I mean, I don't know if I could ever say that because we're always learning, but Ryan knows what he's talking about. I watch his stuff. I mean, I think we have a lot of really similar ideas about, you know, I hear you talking about like getting as much real estate as possible. And it's like, I'm a huge believer in that too. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, we got to come. You'll definitely be invited back in the future because we could talk like in depth. We'll just.
I know, it's like, how's tomorrow?
Yeah. We'll talk ads specifically next time though. And we'll just go down that rabbit hole as deep as we need to. Because I'm going to learn some from you too. It sounds like you definitely like know more about ads than me. So.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, happy to.
All right, cool. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that like button if you learned anything. Thank you for watching till the end, by the way. Especially subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you guys soon.